I hated Scream 7. I really didn't like it. I didn't like it whatsoever. I thought it was unnecessary. I thought it was nostalgia fodder. Killers sort of came out of nowhere. It was too random people. I really hated the whole AI thing with Stu. Just bring Stu back. AI. One of the other people working on Scream agreed that Scream 6 was too gory, too much blood, too much, and so they were gonna dial it back. I am sorry, impaling a teenager on the like spike of a beer tab is less. Like, I know we went a little stab crazy on Jenna Ortega's boyfriend, who should have died, by the way. He also survived Scream 7. Dead. This isn't about Scream 7. This is about this book. Welcome back to I Got Bored. Happy slasher summer. My name's Adanee Vargas, and it is my favorite time of the year for reading, for movies, for media, for everything. If you don't know what slasher summer is, it's when I spend the entire summer only reading slashers that take place during the summer slasher. The book has to be a slasher. The book must take place in the summer. Shockingly, not shockingly though, it's actually there's not a lot of books in this genre. It might be a slasher, but it doesn't take place in the summer. It might take place in the summer, but it falls more under summerween than it does slasher. There's a lot of hard, specific rules for a slasher. I did already post a video talking about what exactly a slasher entails, specifically a summer slasher, but that's not what we're talking about in this video. This is going to be a vlog of all of the paperback summer slashers that I am trying to finish in, let's say, by the end of June. On top of these paperbacks, I'm also reading books on my phone / Kindle and audiobooks. So even though I only have 4 paperbacks to read, they're not the only books I plan on finishing. The first one and the one I'm most excited for was actually bought for me for my birthday by my baby brother. I'm surprised that he nailed this book like so well. I wasn't expecting a birthday gift from him, and when I opened it, I was like, this is literally the most perfect book ever. And what was even more shocking was while I was doing my summer slasher research last year, I read 2 slasher attempts by this author, and this book did not come up. And when I was doing research for slasher summer for this year, this book did not come up. So when I saw it, I was like, how the hell did I not know that this book existed? Because it's literally so up my alley. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. The Stephen Graham Jones who did I Was a Teenage Slasher. The Stephen Graham Jones who did Night of the Mannequins. One of my favorite and one of my least favorite summer slasher attempts of all time. This one I have pretty high hopes for. I'm pretty confident. I really love Stephen Graham Jones' writing style. I really enjoyed I Was a Teenage Slasher. It was basically like a explanation as to how slashers come to be. It really leaned into the like cheesy lore of like, why do slashers disappear if you turn your back? It's about a teenage boy who gets turned into a slasher, i.e. like if a slasher was a vampire, a slasher was a werewolf, like you're getting turned into a slasher. And it was a really great read. I did audiobook it. I really loved the person who narrated the audiobook. It was brilliant. Night of the Mannequins sucked. But Stephen Graham Jones just has a really beautiful way of writing. So I'm really excited to read this one. And it is a trilogy. So if I like this one, then I will go pick up the other 2 and hopefully knock out the whole trilogy for Slasher Summer. I am going to read the back of the book for each of the books I'm reading in this vlog, just so you can know kind of what the book is about as we start vlogging together. I think I'm going to try and do no spoilers in this video. These are all standalones except for this one, which is the first in a series. And so I think I'm going to try and do this vlog. Absolutely no spoilers, but I will warn you guys because I want you guys to be able to follow along, and I also want you guys to read these and debate them with me. You won't find a more hardcore 80s horror fan than high school senior Jade Daniels, and you won't find a place less supportive of girls who wear torn t-shirts and too much eyeliner than Pro Frock. Nestled 8,000 feet up the mountain in Idaho, right alongside Indian Lake, home to both Camp Blood, site of a massacre 50 years ago, and as of this summer, Terra Nova, a second home celebrity Camelot being carved out of the national forest. That's not the only thing that's getting carved up though. This, Jade knows, is the start of a slasher. But what kind? Who's wearing the mask? Jade's got an encyclopedic recall of every horror movie on the shelf. But will that help her survive? Can she get a final girl trained enough to stop all this from happening? Does she even want to? Isn't a slasher exactly what her hometown deserves? That is literally right up my alley. Does my brother know me or what? It's the first one that we're gonna read together, but let's talk about the other three before we start that. The next one is a nonfic. I have two nonfics on my list. I'm not a big nonfic girly, but you're gonna see them and you're gonna understand why I picked them. The first one is Your Favorite Scary Movie by Ashley Collins. It's basically about how the Scream franchise changed the modern horror genre, changed the slasher genre as a whole. Scream is one of my favorite horror movies ever, so I knew I wanted to read it because I'm obsessed with the franchise. So I thought it would be fun to do a non-fic together, especially about a topic that I really am passionate about. So this is going to be probably the second read that I do. The ultimate story of the Scream movie franchise, featuring interviews from more than 80 key players and an in-depth exploration of the creation and legacy of the films that revived a dying genre. Yes, please! In Your Favorite Scary Movie, entertainment journalist Ashley Collins examines the making and impact of the Scream films with behind-the-scenes insight from cast, creators, and crew, as well as sharp analysis on how the movie's special blend of gruesome violence and humorous self-awareness rewrote the horror playbook. Perfect for fans of Scream, horror lovers, and cinephiles, this is a story of how a little movie about a ghost-faced killer terrorizing high schoolers overcame countless obstacles to become a historic success that still has audiences screaming to this day. This is literally my cup of tea. I'm obsessed with Scream franchise, so I'm excited to learn about it. The third one that we're going to do in this vlog, I do not think is a slasher. I went to Philadelphia because at the start of Slasher Summer, they posted about how it's almost Slasher Summer and they were having like a Slasher Summer weekend where you could go and there were going to be like authors talking and there was going to be like free treats and they were going to have a bunch of slashers out, and I show up and there's none. There's no slashers. I don't know if I misread the flyer or what happened. I was kind of too shy to ask. I looked through every single book on their shelf and didn't find a single slasher, just the nonfics that I picked up. So I've got this one because I'm obsessed with fairy tale child story retellings in a horror genre. I'm obsessed with horror, The Wizard of Oz. And I don't think it's going to be a slasher, but I do think it's going to be a gory, murder-filled story that might surprise me. The next one is The Bloody Brick Road by Maud Royer. It is a Wizard of Oz retelling. If you've ever read Dorothy Must Die, that's one of my favorite classical story retellings ever. I love that book so much. I recommend it to so many people. It's been forever since I've read it. I should honestly reread it because I think there was supposed to be a sequel. That cover gives some sort of promising murder plot. 1994, Dorothy Norrit is pregnant and the road ahead seems bright. She has a hardworking boyfriend, a beautiful home, and a job where she works with her best friend. But on October 2nd, on a summer, everything changes. A reckless driver causes a massive freeway pileup, and the Sainton Victorian Hospital in Montreal is suddenly overwhelmed with trauma victims, including 5 mothers-to-be. In just a few days, Dorothy's life has completely unraveled. If this has a heavy pregnancy horror plot, I'm gonna throw up. I do not like pregnancy horror. When I was watching Welcome to Derry, the amount of pregnancy horror in the first 2 episodes alone made me want to not finish the series because I was like, who in this writing room has mommy issues? Let's keep going because that's only the first half of the book, because in 2018, so I guess we're gonna have like a dual timeline. In 2018, the city is plagued by an extremist group called the Winged Monkeys. The gruesome murder of a young man has just made headlines. Lieutenant Henry Duhame and his partner, Detective Sergeant Emilian St. Gellis, what are these names, have been brought in to investigate. Just when they begin to wrap their heads around this heinous act of violence, another young man is found brutally murdered, and then another. Desecrated corpses and organs are scattered across the city, and investigators race against the clock to find the killer. Translated from French, this unhinged retelling features a twisted cast of characters and brings together horror and revenge in a blood-soaked funhouse mirror reflection of the timeless tale with endless Easter eggs. Follow the yellow brick road. The bloody brick road. Follow the bloody brick road. Okay, you're catching me in real time. I did not read the back of this book inside of Philadelphia. I can already tell that this is not going to be a summer slasher based on the fact that it takes place in October, and I'm pretty sure it's just going to be, it sounds like it's going to be like a police procedural. I don't know exactly what the 1994 timeline has to do with anything, but I think it's going to be interesting. I'm still kind of strangely excited for this one. I'm kind of tempted to save it for October, but I've already committed to saying that I'm going to attempt this for summer slasher season. So I bought her with the purpose of reading it for this. So I'm going to keep it. And then the fourth book that I'm going to be reading for this vlog, it all began with a Scream by Padraig Maroney. And fun fact, when I went to Thrillerdelphia, this book was sitting out and I went with my mom because she was visiting me, and there was a sign next to it saying that Padraig Maroney was going to be coming to Thrillerdelphia to do signings. And I met him and I got his autograph. So that was really cool. He talked about his experience. He's been working on this. I think he said it was his COVID baby. He was just emailing people from the Scream cast, getting some lore, getting some fun stories. So this is kind of going to be like a documentary behind the veil kind of thing. Behind the veil. The Oz, the Wizard of Oz reference. A peek behind the curtain, that's what it's called. Anyways, in 1996, a movie came along that changed the face of horror films forever. Initial signs indicated Scream being a flop upon its release in theaters, but it quickly became a word-of-mouth phenomenon, spawning multiple sequels, a television series, and countless imitators. I haven't seen the television series, but I really want to. It's on my list. I just need to find it and commit to sitting down and watching it. But I have seen all the movies, including the most recent one. I have thoughts about that, but that's a different video. 25 years later, the impact of Scream is still being felt in films and pop culture. For the first time, get a behind-the-scenes glimpse of what it took to make the beloved films from the people who were there. With 30 interviews from cast and crew members, It All Began with a Scream provides readers with an unauthorized look at the franchise. From a bidding war for the original script and studio meddling to on-set romances, script leaks, lawsuits, and a beloved director who created a family atmosphere for everyone on his set, find out the story behind Scream. It All Began with Scream is a must-read for horror aficionados, film buffs, and anyone fascinated by Hollywood. So those are the 4 books that I'm going to read in this vlog. Start with My Heart is a Chainsaw. Let's get to reading. Okay, I'm back at the 1/3 mark. I just hit page 150 out of like 360 something, and I'm already freaking obsessed with this book. Like, when I say that Stephen Graham Jones woke up in a cold sweat and thought of me when he wrote this book, that's exactly what I think happened, because this book could not be more up my alley. If you commissioned somebody to write a book for me, this book is literally all of my niche interests. I'm relating to the character in like an alarmingly concerning way. I'm so in love with just like her narrative style and the way of thinking. She kind of thinks a lot like I do, where it's just like thoughts, tangent, connection. What are you talking about? I'm talking about slashers. Oh, you like horror? No, I like slashers. Like, I am literally obsessed with this book, and it's literally the first official read of Slasher Summer, and we're starting off on way too high of a note. So our main character's name is Jade, and she's in high school, and basically she's absolutely obsessed with slashers. She's seen every single slasher that's ever existed ever 3 times over, and she can just like call obscure facts to the front of her brain at all times. She's not obsessed with horror, she's obsessed with slashers. Key difference there. However, I'm obsessed with slashers for a purely it's the best genre ever made standpoint. She's obsessed with slashers because she is depressed and suicidal, and she wants a slasher to come and get her. So she's constantly daydreaming about a slasher coming up behind her and taking her out. She talks about how she's not a final girl. She's not virginal. She doesn't want to be alive. She doesn't want to stop the slasher. She's not a final girl. She is the opening kill. She's one of the nobodies in the background that just gets offed by Jason before the final girl comes and like kills him. So this book literally opens up with our first official kill. The first chapter is the first random kill of some no-name people that you don't really care about, but you do care about them because Stephen Graham Jones does a really great job of like making us care about these 2 characters. They're like skinny dipping. They're like transfer students from the Netherlands, I think. They're cutesy. They die. It's the opening kill shot, and it's really great. And then immediately we go into our first chapter with Jade. Jade has a not so great home life, not so great life. She really has like no friends. She just has her slashers. She's sad. She's sad. And her first chapter literally is her. I filmed the entirety of this recap and then realized I should probably put some trigger warnings in here for suicide and depression and suicidal attempts. They are very prevalent and very in your face. So if you need a trigger warning for suicide ideation, suicide attempts, or depression, this is your trigger warning for this book. And I would recommend maybe skipping at least to the end of this first recap, because we're going to be talking about it a lot. We literally see her, read her. So after committing, and she's been in an insane asylum, and she's like, ooh, I've been to an insane asylum, because what does every good slasher origin story have at an insane asylum? She has escaped one. 9 weeks later, I think, she goes back to school, and a final girl arrives. So a little bit about the town. She is a Native American. Her dad is like the only brown person in the entire community. So I don't know. I don't think they're living on a reservation, but I think they are living in a very poor area, and gentrification is rearing its ugly head because they are turning the island right across from them into this like summer camp for rich people, I guess, like a place for the McMansions, and it's super exclusive. You can only get to the island via boat or plane or swimming, but it's too cold to swim, and the winds are too strong for planes, so it's like super exclusive, and rich people are moving in. So a lot of people hate that, some people love that. Classic gentrification story, basically. And then on top of that, they are building their McMansions right next to the site of a historic slasher, a summer camp massacre that happened 50 years ago. There is an actual slasher that happened in this girl's hometown. No wonder she's so in love with slashers. And now she thinks it's her job to train this final girl to take down a slasher that she thinks is happening, and she's kind of in her head like, am I going crazy? Is the slasher actually happening? Or is the slasher actually happening? Because like, final girl has showed up, dead bodies have shown up, like, the slasher is slashering. I personally think that there's going to be a twist that Jade is the final girl. She keeps saying, I'm not the final girl, I'm not the final girl. Girl, you're the final girl. I know you're going to be the final girl, if not the slasher. Also, you could just be the slasher, and I think that would be also pretty insane. The easiest way to get killed in a slasher movie is to be the slasher whom gets killed by the final girl. So, Jade, do that. Stephen Graham Jones, your writing style never ceases to amaze me. I literally started reading this book yesterday for this vlog, could not put it down for the rest of the night. I was so enthralled. Every single page, I was like, this is so me. I want to read you a couple of quotes that I have underlined that I feel like will get our main character's personality across, as well as the writing style. She falls back almost over the side when Sven starts screaming in Dutch, in English, in human, except more primal, the way you only ever scream once, Lottie knows. For context, those are the two foreign exchange students, and there's been a running joke before that quote of how they're in America, so they should be speaking American. It's the guy's last scream right before he dies. And I thought just saying inhuman was beautiful and poetic, and I love when a slasher starts with like a beautifully poetic something and then sort of devolves into the slasheriness. I love that slashers say something a lot of the time, and I just thought that was a beautiful quote. Sue me. For this one, I literally underlined it, and then in the margins, I put, oh my god, this is so true. To everyone in Profrock, it's Camp Blood. Give Terra Nova a summer or two, Jade figures in Camp Blood will be the Camp Blood golf course, each fairway named after one of the cabins. Yeah. I think we can all agree that's pretty good, Stephen Graham Jones. You see me, I see you, yeah. Something that I completely forgot to mention, that I can't believe I forgot to mention because it's one of my favorite parts of this book, but in between each chapter, Jade is writing these Slasher 101 essays to her history teacher for extra credit, because even though she was literally in an insane asylum for attempting suicide, he doesn't believe that's an excuse to not do her work, and basically she can't graduate, but she doesn't want to retake the class with this next teacher that's coming in because he's about to retire. And so she's just submitting a bunch of essays to him for extra credit to try and get him to allow her to pass the class, if that makes sense. And she always takes the lesson that she's supposed to be writing about and talks about slashers instead. So in between each chapter, we get a little bit of a history lesson about slashers, which I'm eating up. I love. So like in this first essay, she's talking about like kind of what is a slasher, who was the first slasher movie. And in the middle, she says, however, though, if you ask yourself who was the first mass killer, then you can go all the long way back to Phantom of the Opera. And in the margins, I put interesting. I need to rewatch Phantom of the Opera through a slasher lens because that might actually be pretty true. Phantom of the Opera is a slasher. Phantom of the Opera slasher musical, slasher Broadway, bring slashers to Broadway. It has probably been like 15 years since I've seen Phantom of the Opera though, but any excuse to watch Miss Fiona Gallagher hit those high notes. So okay, I feel like this paragraph just perfectly encapsulates our main character for you guys. Since you don't get to be in her head like I do, this really explains who we're dealing with. This is the narrator. It's third person limited, but specifically talking about Jade. The gauze on her arm itches, wants to just come off already, but the gauze is her armor for the day, so it can't come off, and Hardy was too gentlemanly to even question it, though Jade did catch him looking. Why would girl still need dressing over stitches that had long been pulled over a skin weld of scar tissue she's already considering getting a tattoo around, a tattoo of dead fingers clawing their way up and out? The answer, of course, is that she doesn't need it, but she also really does. She's lonely. She has no friends. She comes back to school thinking everybody's gonna ask about her, be interested in her attempt, or ask her how she's doing, or care, and nobody does. She shows up to school literally with gauze wrapped around her attempt, even though her scar is like long been healed, and it's a scar that she's going to wear proudly. She's literally going to tattoo over her scar, like tattoo her scar to commemorate it, and nobody asks her, nobody cares that she's back, nobody talks to her except the final girl whose name is Letha Mondragon, which is pretty epic. There's a whole like paragraph in here where she talks about how all final girls have epic names, and that's a pretty epic name. She is the only Black student at the school. Her dad is like Mr. McMansion president. She's from the community that's gentrifying, but now she's going to the school. They run into each other in the bathroom, and Lena's the only person who even like talks to her. And our main character Jade is like, that's a final girl standing right next to me. She's like, oh my god, she doesn't have nail polish and her hair is beautiful and she's wearing sneakers and she's so virginal and gorgeous and beautiful, and I'm obsessed with her. And is it a little bit gay, or is she just like super into the fact that this final girl means that she could be killed by a slasher? Who knows? I want to find one quote to describe the way her thought process works though. Let me find one. I don't think I highlighted one, but I'm gonna for one. Okay, I found one. This is from the chapter where she is about to commit, and she's basically talking about how anything can lead to a slasher because you become a slasher after something traumatic has happened, something terrible, and you're out to get revenge. She does this a lot. Where she points out something random and mundane, and she's like, that kid just tripped in the hallway. If he dies tonight, he could come back and kill everybody who laughed at him. Like, she just is constantly looking at things through a slasher lens. But the way her brain works, and this is how the narrative style is, even though this is her speaking out loud, it's also how her brain works. It's so jump. It's so constant movie references that you don't get, but they don't come off as condescending. It just comes off as somebody who knows a lot about a topic and is passionate about it and maybe a little bit crazy. So this is Jade talking. I'm saying that this is why I say I should be careful here. Jade tells him, opening her hands to the fire. If I get too close to this and go up in flames, and I'm going to come back in 5 years and carve through this town but I forgot to tell you all the other stuff. Shit, did you know that on the set of The Burning, Tom Savini still had Betsy Palmer's decapitated head from Friday the 13th, and the actors actually got to play with it like a volleyball? And Talking Friday, did you know it and Mother's Day were filming across the lake from each other in 1979? Yeah, the crews would get together at night and drink beer, and no way could they have known that the floodgates were about to open, like those elevator doors in The Shining, right? It had to be, can you even imagine? So just constant jumping. And me, as a slasher fan, loving it, absolutely loving it. But I can see how it can be a little bit hard to be around, and it is a little bit confusing to be in her head, but it's what's really captivating me about this book so far. Okay, let's get back to reading. I just finished the book and it was a 4.75. Literally everything about it was just right up my alley. Like I feel like Stephen Graham Jones just put my name in a little spell jar and was like, help me make the a book that's just right up her alley. And this is the book. This is literally when I say slasher summer book, this is what I'm talking about. This is the new blueprint for every other slasher summer book that I'm going to be reading forever. Like, this is the standard. This is it. This was so good that I took my previous favorite slasher summer book off of my Fable top 5, and now this book is there. If you want a slasher summer book, here we are. Here it is. Anytime I finish a physical book, I write like a little review synopsis on the very last page with my rating, and this was a 4.75. I'm not going to read the review because it does have some massive spoilers. And then I also wrote a little thanks Van note to my brother for bringing this book into my life. If I loved it so much, why wasn't it a 5? Just because it was a little bit confusing in parts, and I felt like there were a couple of loose ends / plot holes. A couple of the deaths didn't line up with who the slasher ended up being, and I don't know if I don't know if the writing was just so fast paced that maybe I missed out on the explanation, maybe the explanation wasn't clear, or maybe it's going to be elaborated on in the second book because this is supposed to be a trilogy, so I will be finding those other 2 books and I will be reading them. But I just felt like I couldn't give it a 5 because a 5 is absolutely perfect, no notes, and I walked away with just a couple of questions of just like I needed some clarity on some things. So not a perfect 5, no notes, but still probably the best summer slasher book I have literally ever read. This book, I was like, you're a cinephile, you're a slasher file. The references were so niche. The movies and just like the references and the media examples that were in this book that our main character was like talking about, I was like, you're a fan. You're a fan, you did your research. I believe it feels so organic. I loved the main character so much, but also she had such like a warped viewpoint on things that I literally halfway through the book I was like, this is going to be the most epic summer slasher that I've ever read, or it is going to be the most heartbreaking metaphor for like mental illness. And I was like, I'm going to love whichever direction Stephen Graham Jones takes us in, because at some points you do like the main character doubts herself so much that you're like, do I need to start doubting the main character? And then it just like, when you're reading it, you're like, is this actually happening? Is she hallucinating? Is what she's telling us true? Is she an unreliable narrator? And the whole time I was reading it, I was kind of like second guessing her until you get to the point of you get your answer as to which way it's going, and then you have this light bulb moment of like, that's what all that meant. I'm gonna look for more quotes and margins. I really like this quote because it's just like a really intense thing to like say about somebody or to think about somebody. And I also love the fact that it's like tied in with such like a niche slasher reference, but she's talking about herself kind of like in the third person, like how other people view her. And she's saying, she's a coaster, a rider, and where do people who go with the flow always end up? The drain. Yes, specifically that one in Janet Leigh's black and white shower. Babes, you're literally living 400 pages in the head of somebody who doesn't think that they deserve to like be alive, but is literally the most complex and interesting human I have ever met. And it might be one of those scenarios where they're like, oh, you like them in this compilation, but if you met them in real life, you'd hate them. You know, like when people make TikTok compilations of like POV the worst person at a summer party, but like low-key they're making like really solid points, and everyone that's in the comments is like, yeah, you like them here, but if you met them in real life, you'd hate them. That's how I feel about our main character, because literally she hates herself so much. She doesn't think that she should be alive. She has no friends, and she talks about how nobody likes her, and she thinks so little of herself, but she's literally the most interesting, complex human. I would love to talk slasher lore with her for like 5 minutes. I think she would be an amazingly interesting friend to have, and I think it would be so nice to be able to go out on the town with somebody else who is also thinking about the possibility of like getting murdered and is checking their like exit routes and is like hyper aware of like all the men in the shady corners. Like, I think I would love to meet her, and so it's so hard reading lines like that. This one, sure, the Indian maidens on all the truck stop blankets are always swivel-hipped, stacked like a Disney princess, but Jade figures she must be from a different tribe. Jade, I want to give you the world. And I feel like that's just so relatable for like so many minority women, of like the hypersexualization of women of color, and that's like the only way that people can stomach a woman of color. And so when like you're a little girl growing up as a person of color and you're like, I don't look like that, I must not be worthy, but it's like, no, babes, you are worthy. It's society. The fact that I am reading a slasher and it's getting so, slashers have commentary about things. The horror genre is always about something else and it's always deeper, and I hate when people are like, the horror genre is like kitschy or blah blah blah. No, it all has deeper meaning, and this book is like really, it's exactly what I want to see from a slasher. And just, oh, okay, this one made me cry because now him and Jade are just two more Indians at the bottom of the pile of massacred Indians. They're circling the drain of history together, while Letha and shooting glasses and mismatched gloves are over at some other drain with harps and angel food cake. But so be it. At least Jade's not alone. It's beautiful. This was literally the best start to my summer slasher season, and I really can't imagine a single book topping it. And so far, none of the books that I have finished have. So I can't recommend it enough. I literally can't. Okay, now that that book is finished, I'm starting my second one, which is Your Favorite Scary Movie by Ashley Collins. I've already started it a little bit, and so far I am quite obsessed. I'm really loving it. I'm not a nonfic reader, so I don't really know if it's a well-written nonfic, but I'm really enjoying all of the fun facts so far. As a fan of Scream, there's actually so much about Scream that I didn't know, and my jaw just keeps dropping at like little things that I'm learning. I'll read you just a couple of fun facts before we get into montage mode. Okay, this paragraph is just about some of the people who almost were in Scream, and I gasped at how different the Scream franchise would have been with these actors in it. So the project caught the attention of a who's who of talented young actors. Brittany Murphy and Alicia Witt were in the running for Sydney, Natasha Lyonne for Tatum, and Brooke Shields for Gale Weathers. Before Barrymore decided to switch roles, they had been eyeing Alicia Silverstone for the opening. Jeremy London, James Marsden, and Vince Vaughn were also among the actors who auditioned. The way that Scream is absolutely perfectly cast, but some of those names, that would have been something. It was almost a completely different movie. This one was just a little funny. It's talking about how Scream came at a time where the slasher genre was really dying. And there's just a line in here that says that at this point in time, slashers had been basically reduced to a source of derivative sequels and schlock. And in the margins, I put, okay, and what was Scream 7? Sorry, I'm a Scream 7 hater. Like, if we're gonna say that Scream revived the franchise, revived the slasher franchise after it basically died out and just became derivative sequels and pointless remakes, this book was written before Scream 7 came out, because I would call Scream 7 that as well. And I'm gonna get back to reading because I feel like I could just read you every single sentence in this book, because so far I'm loving all of the information that I'm getting. I'm back and I finished Your Favorite Scary Movie. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how many reading clips I included just now, because reading this book was kind of scattered, but I'm done. And like I said in the last clip, I don't know if I said this, but there's not really much to talk about. It's a solid nonfiction book. Could I have found a majority of this information on the internet somewhere? Yes, probably, because a lot of it I did know. The fact that Scream 4 was supposed to be its own spin-off trilogy, Emma Roberts was supposed to survive. It was supposed to be a set of 3 movies where Sidney Prescott comes back in the 6th one to kind of like reclaim her story. I knew that. It barely touched on the drama with the fact that Melissa Barrera got fired and Jenna Ortega quit because of everything that happened during 2020, the writer's strike, and then Palestine. And it was like literally one paragraph, and I wanted it to go deeper. It wasn't juicy. Like, I feel like every single thing in here I could have Googled to find out, aside from the quotes, which she interviewed literally so many people and got so many amazing quotes from people, which probably aren't in interviews or I couldn't have found. I wish they had just gotten a little bit juicier. I wish I had gone deeper. It kept alluding to like the fact that obviously Scream 7 was supposed to be a completely different movie before Melissa and Jenna left the project, forced to leave and left voluntarily. I wanted to know what it was. What was Scream 7 supposed to be? What was the original script? What was the original plan for Scream like 5 and 6? Like, tell me. Like, I wanted to know about the goss, the juice, the like all of that. It was very surface level. I wanted more. I wanted exclusive secrets that I can't find on like a TikTok Scream interview compilation. That's really all I have to say about this one. I mean, do I have any quotes that I want to read you? Probably not. Let's just move on. Okay, this is a part of the video where some of you might hate me, some of you might be mad at me, some of you might not like me, and I'm sorry for that. The next book I was supposed to read was the Bloody Brick Road book. We're no longer reading that book next. I'm sorry if you were excited. I will eventually someday read that book. I'll most likely just shift it into October. I got the second book in the Indian Lake trilogy. You guys saw how obsessed in love I was with this book, so when my dad came into town and we went to the Buttery, it's a new bakery in Bryn Mawr, and we just so happened to be right next to a Barnes and Nobles, and I was like, what are the chances that they have Don't Fear the Reaper and The Angel of Indian Lake? And they had both. So my dad bought them for me, and I'm reading it. I'm gonna read you the back of this book, and you're gonna be hooked, and you're gonna be so excited that I'm reading this because you loved the first one, and you're gonna read the first one, and now you're gonna read this one. So 4 years after her tumultuous senior year, Jade Daniels is released from prison right before Christmas when her conviction is overturned. Coming home is not easy, and Jade may never admit it out loud, but she is happy to be back. However, that same day, convicted serial killer Dark Mill South, seeking revenge for his 38 Dakota men hanged in 1862, escapes from his prison transfer as a blizzard descends just outside of Profrock. Dark Mill South's reunion tour began on December 12th, 2019, a Thursday. 36 hours and 20 bodies later, on Friday the 13th, it'd be over. Jade went to prison. Jade went to prison. For what? So she went to prison, she's back, and some more slasherings are happening, and I'm really excited to read it. So I'm sorry if anybody was excited for me to read The Bloody Brick Road. We are now reading Don't Fear the Reaper. Stephen Graham Jones, I could kiss you, I could marry you, I want to meet you, I want to poke around inside of your brain, because how is this book better than My Heart is a Chainsaw? I'm sorry, it's better. It's better. I'm really loving the way that he's handling a lot of what happened in the first book. This book takes place 4 or 5 years after the original book. And what I'm really appreciating about Stephen Graham Jones's writing is that I feel so left out. I feel like an outsider. Have you ever been in a group of people where everybody else knows each other just a little bit better than you do? Maybe you're like new to the friend group, maybe you just got hired at work. So they all have just a way of speaking to each other. They have a pace, they have inside jokes that you're just not privy to. And so you're standing there while they're talking, and you're like, I know you're speaking English, but I don't really know what you're talking about. That's the way Stephen Graham Jones writes, but in the best way possible. Like, I feel like I'm consuming art. I feel like I'm watching actual living people communicate. I feel like these people, they've known each other forever. It is a small town of a population of like 100 people that have known each other literally since they were babies. And they're communicating, their dialogue gives I've known you forever, gives we have a secret language, gives small town talk. They speak without over explaining. They're having conversations, and our main character isn't explaining what's happening to the reader, which I just feel like it's so believable. And I'm like, if you've ever seen Gilmore Girls, the way that they speak really fast, it's what people like about Gilmore Girls. They just talk at a speed that is a little bit hard to follow, and they speak so intellectually. That's the way Stephen Graham Jones writes, especially when it comes to his slasher references. They're just so niche and fast. And I feel like I'm really stretching my brain trying to keep up with the pace of this book, but in a way that's challenging me as a reader. And the fact that it's a fucking summer slasher, a genre that people love to shit on, being like, slashers are cheesy, slashers are campy, slashers are lame. Read this book. Read this book and tell me you don't have to Google anything. Read this book and tell me you understood every single reference. Read this book and tell me that you didn't learn something. I am learning so much, and I'm a fan of the genre. So basically, this book takes place 4 years after the first one, and Jade was in prison for the they acquitted her, though they found her not guilty, and she has come back to Profrock, the small town in which the original Indian Lake slashings happened. And lo and behold, it's happening again. Only this time, they believe that it is notorious serial killer Dark Mill South who was being transferred from one prison to another, and during a snowstorm, the prison transfer caravan or whatever got like lost. Dark Mill South escaped, and they believe that he is hiding out in Profrock and killing people. The kills in this one are even more creative than the first one. I was so excited to read this book because I just wanted to exist in Jade Daniels' head a little bit more. And this book is a mixed POV, a third person. Every single chapter and like within chapters, we switch POVs. And the POV focuses typically on one person, and then we'll switch, and then we'll switch, and we'll switch. So we get to see the killings a little bit more up close than we did in the first one, because in the first one we just have Jade's POV. So the entire time that you're reading the first one, you're in Jade's brain. You know that Jade is an unreliable narrator. You know that she has suicidal tendencies. You know that she views everything through a slasher lens. So you don't know whether or not you can trust her, and you're only seeing as much of these slashings as Jade is seeing. This one, however, it's a third person, so sometimes you'll be in the POV of a person who's being slashed or who is witnessing a slashing. So you actually get to see and experience the kills. You don't know who the slasher is, but you get to like be the person dying. And you also get to exist in Latha Mondragon's head, who was the final girl of the first book. So while I'm really sad that I don't get to exist purely in Jade's head because I loved being in her head, I love being able to firsthand witness the slashing in this book. It feels a little bit more slashery than the first one because I'm getting to actually witness it, and I am really enjoying the chapters that I am in Jade's head. However, Jade, the way she's dealing with her trauma in this book is making me so sad. I didn't think that this book could be sadder than the first book because this first book was so sad. I feel like I need to share some quotes with you because the poetic way that Stephen Graham Jones writes is continuing in this book. He has just such a poetically beautiful way of writing, poetic and heartbreaking and sad. Oh, first of all, dedicated to Wes Craven because this was published shortly after Wes died. This is how you pay tribute to the blueprint, to the original works of art that came before you. This is how you respect the people that paved the way for you to write your book. Okay, Matthew? The thing that I love about Stephen Graham Jones is he doesn't put details in for the sake of putting in details. Because remember in the first book where I talked about how there was just like this really short little blurb of Jade Daniels at graduation and how to atone for the sins of being a white man gentrifying an impoverished area, Latha Mondragon's dad was like, free college for the graduates of this high school starting next year. The book literally opens up with a class war between the people who grew up in Profrock their entire lives and the influx of people who moved to Profrock for the free college education. Love that detail of taking something really small that happened in the first book that would still be relevant in this book, but you don't have to mention, and he does. I love that it's like a continuity thing. Did you grow up here, or did you move here just to graduate from Henderson High and cash in on that sweet, sweet free college? Also, in this book, we have a new form of mixed media. I don't know if they're like essays really, or just like research, or just like short papers from a different character about kind of like background info. So, like, this first one is her name was Jade, and it's a way for Stephen Graham Jones to give us background info without taking away from the plot, without having characters doing this, like, oh, did you hear about Jane? Yada, yada, yada. So, this first one is an essay about just like a little, like a short recap of who Jade was in reference to the massacre in the first book, and also a summary of her trial and where she is today. I love the fact that Stephen Graham Jones is keeping his foot on the neck of the colonizers. You're not gonna forget that he's a Native American author. You're not gonna forget that Jade Daniels is a Native American, with the little quips that he includes, and I love them. For example, this one. It's quaint, isn't it? Letha says, draping herself over the wheel to study the town. I can see what Mr. Samuel saw, I mean. Same thing Columbus saw from his ship. Letha looks over for explanation. Something that wasn't his. My camera is about to overheat, so I'm going to rapid fire the next couple because I just really need to share them with you because they're so poetic and sad and beautiful. W.R. Gardner says that history never looks like history when you're living through it. Yes. What does it look like when you can't stop living through it, though, when it's not even history to you yet? All they found was the little girl who didn't know how to die, over on a shore they never should have broken ground on. As rich as they were, it was Profoc that paid the price for that. Girls without mothers fall apart on the inside when someone like Christian Gillette remembers them, notices their new hair. How would you know? Your file in the main office, she says, shrugging one shoulder. Pleasant Valley has a file on me. Henderson High does. Jennifer nods. That tracks. Well, that's not me anymore, she says. I used to be all horror, slashers, masks, all of that. Now I'm not. You grew out of it. More like it nearly killed me. More like it nearly saved you. The fact that Jade thinks that her love of slashers is what brought death to town, is what almost killed her, when if she wasn't so knowledgeable about slashers, she also would have been one of the ones to die. Like, it probably would have led to more death and destruction. It literally saved her. It literally saved her. And the last one from the pages I'm currently on, which just makes me love Stephen Graham Jones even more. In Scream 2, when it's that Wilson guy and Tori whoever, how did the stab people know about that scene? Billy's dead and Sid wouldn't be talking to Hollywood. Sure, somebody's passing by might have seen the two of them there, but they didn't hear the whole conversation. This is in reference to the fact that they're theorizing who was in the Ghostface costume when Sydney Prescott was in the bathroom. Was it Stu? Was it Billy? It couldn't have been Billy. She was literally just talking to Billy. Was it somebody pranking her? Like, who was in the Ghostface costume? And Jade, the girl that I share a brain with, the girl that I share a heart with, is talking about how did that scene end up in the Stab franchise, which is the movie within Scream, the movie that's based on Sydney Prescott's life, the movie within the movie. How did that scene end up in Stab if Sydney would not have told the scriptwriters or the producers of Stab about that scene, and Billy's dead, the only two people in that scene? And I literally write, I've always said this. I have always said this about that scene. I have always said this. And Jade Daniels said the same thing. Stephen Graham Jones thought the same thing. That's just crazy. I just love that. I love something that I have been theorizing and thinking about because I've seen the movie so many times. I love Scream. I love the fact that something that I have been thinking about and theorizing and like nitpicking about a movie is literally in here, has literally crossed the brain of another slasher fanatic. Taking the point even further, in Scream 7, when Tatum's boyfriend climbs in through her window and like uses a line on her, it's the same line that Billy used on Sydney in Scream 1. Creepy and crazy. If my boyfriend climbed into my window trying to get into my pants and used the same pickup line that my mom's ex-boyfriend, dead slasher boyfriend, used on her, disgusting and gross, disgusting and gross. But he says that he uses that line on her because he heard it in the Stab movies. How would the producers know about that? Sydney would not have told them about that. Billy's dead. There's nobody else here. How did that scene end up in the Stab movies if it was an intimate scene just between the two of them? So I love that we're poking holes in Scream in this book. I love it. I just got back from Lollapalooza and literally so much has happened since I last talked to you. I finished so many books at Lollapalooza. I was reading at Lollapalooza, no shame. I was reading in between sets. The second that I would wake up in the morning, because I'm an early riser and the friend that I was with is not, I would wake up before her just so I could sit by the window and read. And then when we would get home, even though it was like midnight and I was exhausted, I would read until I literally fell asleep. And every book I'm going to talk to you about, love. love, freaking love. I love the fact that I'm ending this vlog on such a high note. The first book that I finished was Don't Fear the Reaper, which is where we last left off. I finished this book, not even kidding, 2 minutes before my Uber driver was outside of my apartment. Because this book is thick. She's big and she's thick, and I wanted to bring 2 books with me on the trip. I didn't want to bring a third, let alone this behemoth of a book, and I only had like 50 pages left. So I, before Lala, like made sure I was fully packed, and then I was just sitting on the floor in the middle of my living room, reading as fast as possible. I finished the last page. Uber driver pulled up. Perfect timing, because it would have made me so mad to bring this entire book with me on my travels just to finish like 10 pages. In fact, if I didn't finish, I think I would have just taken pictures of the last 10 pages so I didn't actually have to bring the book with me. But I finished it, and it was a fucking 5. It was a 5. Okay, it was a 5. I didn't think it was possible for Stephen Graham Jones to top himself. I didn't think it was possible for him to write a book that I would like more than My Heart is a Chainsaw. I loved My Heart is a Chainsaw. The little things that I was nitpicking about it were literally just that, nitpicks. This book was perfect. And what's crazy is, like they say in Scream, the sequels never better than the original. The sequels never hold up to the original. Better than the original. 5 freaking stars. I'm not gonna spoil any of it. And it's been so long since my last vlog installation that I can't really remember all that I said. But basically, if you love trauma, sad shit, psychoanalyzing, like, this book isn't just for slashers. If you love to just like think mentally about things, this book is for you. This book dealt with so much trauma. You're dealing with the trauma of Jade, who like lived through this slasher event. You're dealing with the trauma of our final girl, Letha, from the first book, and they deal with their trauma so differently. I think that they were both beautiful, amazing representations for the trauma that they had to endure. They both went in completely separate ways. Equally heartbreaking, equally ripped my heart out, equally heartbreaking, equally shattered me, equally broke me into a million pieces. My 2 girls, I loved them. And the book just unfolds in the most beautiful way, and I was really disappointed to find out that this book was not written from the POV of Jade. But the multi-POV-ness started to really grow on me. I actually really loved it, and I don't think that there was a way for Stephen Graham Jones to tell this story in such a successfully beautiful way as he did if it was a multi-POV, because it's not just like multi-POV chapter. It's not like Letha, Jade, or like 3 characters. It's not like every single chapter is a different character. It's every single installation. Like, you know how you have a whole chapter and then sometimes you'll like read like a scene and then there'll be like a line break and it kind of jumps scene. Every single one of those is a different POV. And it's from the POV of Jade, and it's from the POV of our ex-sheriff and our new sheriff, and Letha's husband, and then our new final girl, and some of the survivors from the original massacre, and also the notorious serial killer. The notorious serial killer has a POV, and when I started reading his POV, I was like, and what I love about it is that you just get so... The problem with reading a slasher, which I'm aware of, is that when you're watching a slasher, you get to be in this omniscient point of view. And yeah, you have a main character, but as the viewer, you get to see things that our main characters don't get to see. You get to see Michael Myers like stalking the neighborhood, and you get to see Jason kind of like hiding behind trees and maybe like killing some random hiker that's unimportant. And you get to like see little details, and you get to see every single kill, even if our main character doesn't. The problem with a slasher book, especially if it's going to be a first-person narration, is that you only get to see what the main character sees. So you don't really get the slasher buildup of seeing every single kill, because even though our final girl doesn't see every single kill, they'll see the aftermath of the kill. The viewer sees it, and it's what raises the stakes and the fear of like, oh my god, that was such a brutal death, oh my god, I can't believe he died, and then it makes you more scared for the people who are still surviving. It's hard to do that in a book where it's first person, because then you're kind of limited to what your main character can see. And so what I loved about this one is that it was jumping to literally unimportant characters that literally died the next page. And so you got to see every single death. You got to see sort of like the people who didn't even know because this is not a summer slasher. It takes place in the winter. It takes place during a blizzard. Not everybody, nobody in town, aside from the people who are being killed and witness the killing, knows that there's a slasher on the loose because there's no power, there's no TV, like the cell phones aren't working. So you have like kids out shoveling snow, kids out going on dates, like trying to hook up with each other, and just seeing them like living blissfully and like la la la, while you know that there's a slasher lurking around. So while you're reading their POV, you're like, oh my god, is the killer gonna come and like kill these people? Is this just like a slice of life little detail? Like what? It like really builds up the suspense because you never know if the person that you're reading the POV from is about to die, is about to witness a horrific death, or is just sort of like a little detail that Stephen Graham Jones wanted to throw in. You also get to know all the characters really intimately. You get to know how they're feeling. I really liked reading from the POV of Lisa's husband and how he viewed her. You also get the POV from our sheriff from the last book. We really go in deep about his relationship with his daughter who passed away. The trauma of everything that happened with the massacre and how involved Jade was just brought forth so many emotions about him and his own daughter who passed. And then the end of his story. Some people might hate it. Some people thought that it was like out of nowhere, out of left field. When the main character of the book is Native American, I do feel like it was symbolic. I thought that it was a really nice way, same with the first one, to bring a supernatural element into it without it being a supernatural paranormal slasher. Sort of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where there's like that supernatural element of like dream walking, but it's not like a paranormal. It's still a slasher. I could probably just talk about this book forever. My best friend Priska currently is reading the first one, and I'm really excited to just like really go deep in on the book with her. I'm trying to convince everybody in my life to read this book because it's just a book that's like living in my head, and I can't stop thinking about it. I love it. Would I want a movie made out of it? No, I don't think they'd ever be able to do it correctly. And that's not me being a hater. I just think that there's a level of, maybe like a level of sophistication, a level of intelligence with Stephen Graham Jones's writing that is already so nuanced when you're reading it. You really have to be present when you're reading this book because you have to think about things really critically, and there's so many references, and if you really want to understand them, then there's like sort of like an element of Googling, and he writes in just such a fast-paced way. There's no over-explanation. Like, I can compare it to when you're reading a book and they go, "Are you cheering on the Belly Bears tonight?" Sonia said. And then in the main character's narration, it'll be like, "The Belly Bears is a team in the town that we have been cheering at." It'll give like a little bit of like background information within the narration. Stephen Graham Jones doesn't do that. If you're talking to somebody who knows what the Belly Bears is, you're not going to explain it to them, and you're not going to explain it in your own head. He doesn't do that. There's like a level of like voyeurism to his writing, and some of it might not fully make sense. They talk so fast, and they talk in a way where it's like you're not always sure what they're referencing. I just don't think it would translate well to film, and it was actually my favorite part of the book. I felt like it really like expanded my brain. I just really had to be present while reading this book, but not in a way where it's like, oh my god, I'm so confused, like what's going on, but in a way of like, I want to absorb every single thing that Stephen Graham Jones is trying to communicate to me. I don't want to miss a single thing. And I think that I annotated so much in these two books, more than I've annotated any other book. I cannot wait to read the third one. I don't know how he's gonna land this plane. I don't even know what the third one's about. I haven't even read the back of the book yet. I have no idea how he's gonna end it. I really want Jade to have a happy ending. I really want Lisa to have a happy ending, but I have a feeling it's going to end in tragedy. I am not going to include the third book in this vlog because I feel like this vlog is already kind of getting really long, and I want to post it soon. So I am going to do a vlog specifically for The Angel of Indian Lake, and that one will have spoilers. Also, when I do eventually post my summer slasher recap at the end of the summer, those videos will have some spoilers. So if you have read the first two, look out for those two videos because we're gonna chat hardcore. Let me find some quotes. I don't know where I left off with the last book, but I want to redo some quotes because I underlined a lot of them. I'd love for him to write about me. Like, how would he describe me? I don't want to know. I love this one because I relate, because summer slashers are my favorite of all the slashers. And Jade says, fucking December, she says about all of this. Couldn't he wait for July like a respectable slasher? In the margins here, I just wrote, oh, how you would have loved Scream 6, because the first one was written in the 2010s sometime. And then Jade, who has seen every single slasher movie 3 times over, has been in prison for 5 years. So she's missed every single new slasher to come out since then. It's 2019. So she has missed so many slashers. And as opposed to avoiding those slashers or plot holing it to where she like was watching slashers in prison, you know, Stephen Graham Jones actually makes it a point to have Jade super confused when people are making slasher references to movies that she hasn't seen yet. So she hasn't seen any of the latest Scream movies. There's also like a reference to Happy Death Day, I think, the one where the roommate kills the main character with like the poisoned cupcake. That's referenced in here. Somebody says like to her Happy Death Day and she's like, what the fuck, that's so morbid, like why would you say that? So for once, she's not the expert in her own genre. The common assumption about how she was able to do that is that her Native American status granted her dueling privileges with Darkmill South, himself Native American. Jennifer Daniels, then also being of Native American extraction, would be similarly privileged according to this theory. It's not very often that you get Native American representation in media, let alone your main character being Native American, and then in the second book, your main slasher being Native American. And I just love the fact that Stephen Graham Jones, being Native American, writes with like this representation as somebody who's Native American. This quote's not going to make any sense to you guys because I don't want to give the context that would spoil it, but this is what I mean when Stephen Graham Jones just writes in a very poetic way, because he could easily say like, she cut her hair to get revenge on a boy, but instead he writes, and all because of what happened to her in October, all because somebody put scissors in her hand, which is just a set of blades, is just violence, which shares an important V with revenge. Yeah. Put it on a shirt. And then this is me giving it 5 stars because it was beautiful and I love it and I can't wait to read the 3rd book. Anyways, one of the 2 books that I took with me to Lollapalooza was this new book, Slasher Summer by E.L. Chen. It just came out this year. It's absolutely destroyed because guess what? It stormed at Lollapalooza. It stormed. Not only did it storm, but I stupidly left my camel bag unhooked, and when I filled it up with water, it drenched my book. So brand new book, completely ruined, but it's fine because it's memories. I did read her on the plane. I read her in between sets. If you notice, I have a new intro photo at the beginning of my video. That's from reading at Lollapalooza. I feel like that's the most me photo to ever exist, is me eating hot fries at a music festival while reading. I finished this book in like 3 days and I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it. This book is, I've said this about other books. I've said this about My Heart is a Chainsaw. I've said this before, but I'm locking in on this book. This is the epitome. This is the blueprint. This is the guide. This is the rules and regulations of what a summer slasher book is. This is a summer slasher at its summer slasheriest. My Heart is a Chainsaw is a perfect, amazing book, but it's very meta. It's very aware of the fact that a slasher is happening and there needs to be a final girl. This is a summer slasher. It is Scream at a summer cabin. It is Scream in the summer. It is a summer slasher. Is it a little bit meta? Yes, but there has to be, and the way that slasher started dying out, because it's like, have you never seen a horror movie? Why would you pick up the phone? Why would you open the door? Why would you go down the stairs? Like, there's a level of like, I could never be Laurie Strode. I wouldn't drop the knife. That's why Scream came along, because all the main characters have seen horror movies. So when they're getting chased by Ghostface, Sydney is like, why would I run up the stairs? She runs up the stairs, but then she literally dials 911, locks herself. Like, she's so smart. She's so smart. You can tell she's an actual human being being chased by a slasher who has knowledge on how to survive. That's the same with this meta-ness. It's not even so much as they think they're actually about to get slashed. It's about a group of friends at a cabin in the woods, and they lose power, and it's storming, and they're scared, and there's like a little bit of like a bodies, like fear mongering of like, oh my god, we're all gonna die, and then making jokes about what if they get slashed. That's the meta. It's not the like, you're the final girl, you guys can't have sex, you are the nerd, you are dying next. That's how I feel like a lot of these meta slashers are, where it's very like too aware of the fact that you're in a slasher. This is more like, this would be me, where if I was in a cabin in the woods and the power went out, I'd be like, Ghostface is here, everybody arm up with knives. It's a joke, but like, it's in the back of everybody's mind. I'm just saying it out loud. So this is about 6 friends who in high school were a part of a film club, who was a part of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show-esque reenactment of this movie called Slasher Summer. I love how stupid the movie is. It's literally called Slasher Summer, and the name of the villain is just called Slasher. It's basically just like a caricature of all slashers. It's like this really famous, not really famous movie that I think is it took place in like their little small town, so it's just like people go there for Slasher Summer. It's got like this big cult following, and they would play the movie on screen, and then the 6 of them would act it out like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and like throw blood at the audience, and just like really like they were like, yeah, acting out the movie. That's what they were doing. And so what I love about the meta-ness of this is that each of the 6 characters were playing a trope. Obviously, we have you because they're all on the cover. She played the final girl. He played the like hot guy. She played the hot girl. He played the nerd. He played the stoner. She played the like bitchy rebel without a cause, and he played the I actually don't know what he played. But he's gay. And that's the real life trope of the slasher genre that he's kind of playing. But the point is, they were each casted in those roles, and those are also the roles within the book that they embody. And what I like about it is that they were all actively aware of the persona that they give off, while at the same time hating it, not for the sense of like, just because I'm the blonde girl with big boobs doesn't mean I'm gonna die first. More so of like, when you're acting out the same scene like every single Friday night, and people in the audience are yelling like, slut, slut, you're gonna die, slut, it does something to your psyche. And so our blonde girl with big boobs was very aware of the fact that she should die in a slasher because she's the blonde girl with the big boobs, but she's also a like collegiate swimmer, and she's very smart, and she's not gonna like go down without a fight. And so she's actively aware of the role she's portraying in the slashers movie, and she's not gonna let that happen. Same with like our nerd. He's constantly fighting against the fact that he's not just a nerd, he's actually like really capable, and our final girl does not want to deal with being a final girl. And also there's like a fractured element to the friend group, because I don't really want to give it away because I really liked the way that they unveiled it, but something salacious happens in the friend group, and so there's like a fractured element to the friend group. They're not all on good terms, and this is also like 5 or 6 years after high school, so it's more of like a reunion, so they're all not super close anymore aside from our hot couple. There's so much that I liked about this book. I liked the pacing. It's told from each of the 6 POVs. You get a chapter from every single person. It's really hopping around, which really helps. Similar with Don't Fear the Reaper, because you're not tied to 1 or 2 people, you get to see everything. I really cared deeply about every single character, which I feel like is really hard to do in a book, but it's so integral to the slasher genre that you care about every single person who's dying, because you don't want to waste blood. Every single death serves a purpose, and so I was deeply attached to every single character, and I was like, I don't want any of them to die. I don't want any of them to die. And throughout the first half of the book, the things that were happening was very like, guys, maybe there's not a slasher. Like, I literally wrote in the margins at one point, like, please don't let this be another bodies, where there's actually nothing happening. They're just all feeling like a sense of panic. I was like, is it just going to be that? Until the slasher reveals himself and starts killing them. Like, spoiler alert, it is actually a slasher. I really liked the pacing. I really liked every single character relationship. It was really believable. I really liked the ending. I really liked who the slasher ended up being. I really liked the twist. I literally wrote in the margins, I was like, I either love this or hate this. I need to reread the book now to see if it works. And it does. It does. And I like hate myself for not seeing it, for not calling it. But then as soon as the reveal happened, I was like, yeah, yep, that was the best it could have been. That was the best ending. That was the best slasher. I loved it. It wasn't 5 stars though. I wanted to give it 5 stars so bad. It was 4.5 stars. And that is because the book And I can't really tell you too much without completely spoiling who the slasher is, and I don't want to do that. I will talk more in depth about it in my summer slasher recap video, because the author does break a pretty big slasher rule, and I don't hate the fact that they broke the rule. I think it was justified, because the slasher, their motivation, everything about it, I fully agreed with, fully supported. I didn't like who the final girl ended up being, mostly because I hated the character. I hated the character. I felt like out of all of the characters, they had the least redeeming qualities. I feel like they were actually the worst character out of the 6, and I wanted them to die first. I thought that they were going to be the first death. I understand why this character survived. It's a journey that the character was going on. I loved the ending. I loved everything about it. Just hated this character. I feel like they weren't a good person. I think that a lot of their behavior was excused, and I don't think that that's okay. Also, during the big like slasher reveal, they made it about themselves, where they were like, maybe if I paid this person more attention, this wouldn't have happened. Oh my god, they're actually so fiery and have a personality. Maybe we would have been something. Maybe I would have liked them. Oh my god. It's just like, I just hated the final girl. So that kind of like pissed me off, because I was like, if you're gonna break a pretty big slasher rule, do it successfully. Every aspect has to be successful. I feel like I'm speaking so cryptically, and you're probably like, what the fuck are you saying? Or I don't want to give too much away, because it's spoiling the entire ending. But the ending is what I had a problem with. If you've read this book, how did you feel about the ending? This book just did so much right. I was like literally reading it in between Lala sets, because I was addicted to it, and I wanted to know how it was gonna end. And lastly, the final book of this vlog that I just finished is It All Began with a Scream. It is my autographed copy, and this is just another non-fic about the Scream franchise, same as the one that I read earlier in this vlog. This one, a lot better. It was only a 3.25. I give the other one a 3. This one was a lot better because I felt like it actually went really deep. I feel like I actually got information, fun facts that I wouldn't have gotten from Googling. I feel like he went a lot deeper. Like, we learned like the cast's favorite Italian restaurant, and the fact that the cast would like went during Scream 1 and crashed proms, and there was every single thing that was in that first book was in this book. But there was a lot in this book that was not in that one. That one felt very surface level. It felt like she was playing nice. She was giving everything like a nice little sheen, really playing like positive Polly. This one showed some nitty gritty, some fighting. I feel like they both wrote with a level of opinion. The other one was very like, oh, the Screams are perfect. They're so good. Don't you just love Scream? And this one wrote with a little bit of like, yeah, Scream 3 kind of fucking sucked. And we all think that, and it's because Williamson wasn't involved, and Scream 3 makes no sense, and it's not a Scream film. My gripe with this book was it's not super well written. There's like some jumbliness to some of like the quotes and the sentences. It's not like Pulitzer Prize winning, and it's also only the first 4 movies. It's all I wanted the drama of the 6 to 7. I was so excited because I was like, this author's going in. This author is giving us details. This author is giving us like, this author went in on Harvey Weinstein. He went in on the Weinsteins. He included the fact that Rose got blacklisted because she was raped at a Weinstein party, included it in here. Rose talked about it in here. He talked about how it was so funny, the plot of Scream 3 in retrospect to the Weinsteins and everything that came out. And I was like, this is an author that's going to go in on the stuff that happened with our 2 leading ladies between 6 and 7 and Palestine. It stopped at 4. What 7 was supposed to be, because in the other book, she sort of hints that 7 was supposed to be something completely different. What was it gonna be? I want to know. But yeah, solid book. Like, I feel like the other book was if you're kind of new to the Scream franchise and you kind of just want to like know a little bit deeper. This one's more if you're like an avid Scream lover and you like really want the drama and the tea and the gossip. That's all I got for you guys on that one. But I read it like within 2 days. It was a really quick read. I'm so glad that this is not the book that I took to Lollapalooza, because my other book, all my annotations are gone. They're gone, and I'm so glad I didn't lose my autograph. So, and those are almost all of the hardcover, paperback, physical summer slashers that I'm reading this year for summer slasher season. Thank you so much for watching this video, my chaotic vlog. I never really know what I'm going to talk about when I do reading vlogs, and I also don't want to spoil anything, but I also really want to talk to you guys about it in detail because I loved a lot of these books. So let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to elaborate on, just like in the comments with you. If there's anything specifically you want me to talk about when I do a spoiler filled recap at the end of the summer, that video is going to have every single summer slasher that I read from the beginning of the summer to the end. I'm going to rank them. I'm going to talk about how summer slashery they were, how slashery they were, how, like, I'm going to go in a lot deeper on those. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you agreed with me, if you didn't agree with me. Let's chat about it. If you've read any other summer slashers that I haven't mentioned, maybe I can squeak it in before the end of August, or maybe I've previously read it. That is all I have for you guys. I will put my Fable and my Pagebound in the caption below if you'd like to connect, and I will see you in the next slasher.